"What the hell is this?" David Morrison's voice echoed across the pristine rows of white headstones. His first day as Arlington Cemetery's new director, and he was already finding problems. He stood on a small hill overlooking Section 60, binoculars in hand, watching an elderly maintenance worker kneel at a grave. The old man was placing flowers, not part of a ceremony, not with family present, just alone. Morrison lowered the binoculars and turned to his assistant. "Is that one of our staff?" "Yes, sir. Walter Hayes. He's been here for—" "I don't care how long he's been here," Morrison snapped. "That's completely inappropriate. Groundskeepers don't have personal relationships with graves. It's a conflict of interest. It's unprofessional. Get him to my office, now." 20 minutes later, Walter Hayes sat across from Morrison's desk. The old man's hands were folded in his lap, his maintenance uniform clean but worn. He didn't look nervous, just tired. "Mr. Hayes," Morrison began, his tone clipped and businesslike, "I've been informed that you have a habit of visiting a specific grave every morning. Section 60, row 14. Is this true?" "Yes, sir," Walter said quietly. "And you do this on company time?" "No, sir. I arrive early, before my shift. It's on my own time." Morrison leaned back. "That doesn't matter. You're still in uniform. You're still representing the cemetery, and it looks bad. What's your relationship to the deceased?" Walter hesitated. He was a friend. "A friend," Morrison repeated, skeptical. "Mr. Hayes, the deceased, Corporal James Mitchell, died in 2003. You would have been in your 60s. He was 23. How exactly were you friends?" Walter's jaw tightened. "It's complicated." "Then uncomplicated," Morrison demanded, "or I'm going to have to ask you to stop. This is a warning." Arlington National Cemetery was one of the nation's most sacred places, over 400,000 graves, presidents, generals, ordinary soldiers, each one a story, each one a sacrifice. And David Morrison was tasked with protecting its prestige. The board had hired him because he was efficient, not emotional, logical. He followed rules, and Walter Hayes was breaking the rules. Morrison looked out his office window at the cemetery. "Mr. Hayes, I understand you've worked here for 22 years. That's impressive. But that doesn't give you special treatment. This cemetery is an institution. There are protocols, standards, and the boundaries between staff and graves must be clear." Walter looked up. "I'm just paying respect, sir. I'm not hurting anyone." "Whether you're hurting anyone doesn't matter," Morrison interrupted. "Perception matters. What will other families think if they see this? Why does this man get special treatment? There must be equality, impartiality." "I understand," Walter said slowly, "but this grave is special to me." "Why?" Walter hesitated. His eyes drifted away to a place, a time Morrison couldn't understand. "Mr. Hayes?" Morrison asked sharply. "I'm waiting for an answer." Walter took a deep breath. "James Mitchell. He was my mistake." Morrison frowned. "Your mistake? What do you mean?" "I couldn't save him," Walter whispered, his voice cracking. "I should have, but I couldn't." Morrison waited silently. Something inside him, maybe a little empathy, maybe just curiosity, wanted him to continue. Walter continued, his voice low and controlled. "I was an EMT, emergency medical technician, in the 1990s and early 2000s. I worked on military bases, did contract work. In 2003, James was in a training accident, parachute jump, chute didn't open. I was on the first response team." The room went quiet. Morrison leaned forward. "When we reached the scene," Walter stopped, closed his eyes. He was so young, 23, fresh, excited, loved the military. He'd talk about his family, his girlfriend, his future. And now he was lying there, broken, bleeding, and "You did the best you could," Morrison said softly, the hardness in his voice gone. "It wasn't enough," Walter whispered. "We lost him, in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. He took his last breath in my hands, and the last thing he said, "Talk to my mom. Tell her I love her." Walter's voice broke. Tears streamed down his cheeks. I promised him. I talked to his mother. I went to his funeral. And then I couldn't come back, couldn't move on with my life. I was diagnosed with PTSD, panic attacks, sleep disorders. I lost my job. My marriage fell apart. Everything collapsed. Morrison swallowed, now truly listening. One day, Walter continued, here at the cemetery I found his grave, and I sat there for hours. And for the first time in months, I found peace, like he was still with me, listening, forgiving. "So you come every day," Morrison said softly. "For 42 years, Walter confirmed. "Every morning, I leave a flower. I tell him about my day. I apologize. And I keep living." Morrison leaned back. Suddenly, his office felt too small, too cold. "Mr. Hayes," he began, but couldn't find the words. Walter stood up. "I understand, sir. There are rules. If I need to stop this, I'll resign. But please just let me visit him. Not as staff, just as a visitor." Morrison opened his mouth to answer, but there was a knock at the door. His assistant Jennifer Park entered, her face pale. "Sir, I'm sorry, but there's a problem. At Section 60. Morrison frowned. "What problem?" "There's a visitor, a retired colonel. He's asking about the grave Walter visits every morning. And he wants us to see something about that grave." Morrison and Walter looked at each other. Then the three of them walked to the cemetery together. Section 60, row 14, grave 23. There, in front of the white marble headstone, stood a retired colonel in uniform. His hair was gray, his posture military, medals gleaming on his chest. Beside him stood a young woman, maybe in her 30s, standing in tears. Morrison approached. "Sir, I'm the cemetery director. How can I help you?" The colonel turned. His face was serious. "My name is Colonel Richard Stevens. I was James Mitchell's commanding officer. And this," gesturing to the young woman, "is his sister, Sarah." Sarah froze when she saw Walter. Her eyes widened. "You," she whispered. "Is it you?" Walter was confused. "I'm sorry?" Sarah stepped forward, holding a small, old photograph. In the photo, a young James in uniform, standing beside another man, older, wearing an EMT uniform. Walter. "I found this in James's belongings," Sarah explained, her voice trembling. "On the back it says, 'Walter Hayes, the man who never left me.'" Walter's breath caught. He recognized the photo. It was taken at training camp, months before the accident. Sarah continued, tears flowing. "James talked about you, in his letters. There's this great EMT at camp," he'd write. "Guy named Walter. He looks out for all of us. I love him." And then the accident happened, and you told our mother. You were at the funeral. I remember. Walter nodded, unable to speak. Colonel Stevens interjected. "Mr. Hayes, I've been looking for you for 20 years. After James's death, you disappeared. No one could find you. But 2 days ago, Sarah showed me something." He pointed to the headstone. Morrison approached, looked more carefully. At the very bottom of the stone, almost worn away, carved in small letters, was an inscription. "Saved by the one who never left." Morrison's face went pale. This isn't in the records. Who wrote this?" Sarah smiled through her tears. "I did, 10 years ago. Before my mother died, she told me something. If you ever find Walter Hayes, thank him. For letting James spend his last moment with him, for not leaving him alone. But we couldn't find you. So I carved it on the stone, hoping maybe someday you'd read it." Walter dropped to his knees. His hands covered his face. 42 years of weight, 42 years of guilt, 42 years of pain pouring out. I couldn't save him," Walter sobbed. "I should have, but I couldn't." Sarah knelt beside him, wrapped her arms around him. "You did save him. Maybe not his body, but his soul. He didn't die alone. He didn't die afraid. He was with you. And that's everything. Colonel Stevens saluted. Mr. Hayes, you performed an honorable service. James was never forgotten, because you never forgot him. Morrison stumbled backward. His chest tightened. He didn't know what to say. Then another voice was heard. An elderly man, a visitor, had been watching them. He approached. I knew him too, he said. James Mitchell. He trained in the same unit as me. He was a wonderful kid. And you, he looked at Walter. You're the famous EMT, Walter Hayes. Everyone talked about you. If you get hurt, try to get to Walter. He'll save you. Another visitor, a retired nurse, joined in. I worked at the military hospital. I remember Walter Hayes. He was the best emergency response technician, saved hundreds of lives. Suddenly, a crowd began forming. Visitors, staff, veterans, all sharing stories about Walter, his kindness, his courage, his sacrifice. And Morrison stood there, shocked, ashamed, and profoundly changed. Mr. Hayes, when Morrison found his voice, it trembled. I'm so sorry. The way I spoke to you, my judgment, I didn't know. Walter stood up with Sarah's help. You didn't need to know, sir. I was just doing my job. No, Morrison shook his head. No, you were doing much more than your job. You were saving a soul, James's, and I think yours too. There was silence. Then Morrison took a deep breath. Mr. Hayes, I owe you a formal apology and an offer. This cemetery wants to honor your story. We want to place a plaque here, next to James's grave, to commemorate your dedication. And if you'll accept, we'd like to promote you to a full-time position as Veterans Relations Coordinator, to counsel veterans, to support families. Walter's eyes filled with tears. I'm just a groundskeeper. No, Sarah whispered, you're a hero. Months later, Arlington Cemetery held a special ceremony. Hundreds attended. At section 60, row 14, grave 23, next to James Mitchell's grave, a new small plaque was erected. It read, "In memory of Walter Hayes, for 42 years, every day, never giving up true devotion serves in silence." Walter was there that day. His uniform was new, a new badge on his chest, but in his hand he still held the same thing, a single white rose. Sarah hugged him. Thank you for everything. Walter smiled through tears. No, thank James. He gave me a reason to live. Because true heroism isn't just about saving a life once. It's about remembering every single day. Walter Hayes' story reminds us the deepest devotion lives in silence. And sometimes saving a life means never forgetting it. Like, subscribe, and share. Because every veteran and every memory deserves respect. Have you ever done something special to honor someone you lost? Share below. We keep remembering silent heroes. Remember, true love never leaves.